Are we gonna do something about Mundo? He's getting out of hand. So like, I guess the question would be is like, what is the indication that he's out of hand? Is he OP? Is he winning too many games? Is he not fun to play against? I'll definitely say he feels powerful, for sure. Mundo tanks 5 people for 10 seconds and survives. That's the indicator. I mean, why is that bad? Like, actually asking the question, why is it bad that Mundo can tank 5 people for 10 seconds and survive? That is not necessarily an indication that a champion should be nerfed. Is it bad because he killed someone and got out? Is it bad because he took 3 towers while doing it? Like, Mundo as a champion's entire fantasy is based around having 5 health bars, right? So, the most unfair part of Mundo is he takes trades and then sits AFK behind a turret to heal full with Mormogs. So Mundo is definitely a very sharp character. If you don't have the ability to kill him, like, you will probably never kill him. That's a little tautological as I say it, but it's like, yeah, if you can't, like, figure out how to, like, knock him down, like, you know, any sort of, like, poke-based champion probably doesn't have a lot to do there. That said, like, a character who can just stick on him and beat him up, he can have troubles with them, just depends on the champ. I'm not saying Mundo's perfectly balanced, I honestly, I don't know, right? But just mentioning that, like, just because he feels strong and does strong feeling things, like, especially things that are, like, right in line with what he's supposed to be doing, right? It's like, well, what is the specific thing you should nerf in that case? Like, maybe he just does too much damage for how much he does, right? Like, maybe he just shouldn't, maybe his damage should be lower if he can get as tanky as he is and can survive as long as he does. Does Riot use AI? I don't know of the ways that we use AI. I am not up to date on that. I think post-death screen giving tips versus the champ that died to be very valuable. If this were added, would Riot go endless ways for every champ in the game? I mean, so let's talk about that, right? Like, the suggestion is use AI to generate post-death tips for when you died to someone. For starters, one of the problems there is just, would people read it? And the answer is most likely no. Like, the reality of, like, post-death screens is no one actually reads that stuff. They read, like, the damage types, but, like, it's a question of, like, for starters, just, like, how valuable is, like, you died and then we have, like, some blurb for you to read? Like, most people just don't read that stuff. They just don't. So the value on it is questionable to begin with. That said, though, a question about AI in this case is, like, would it create quality content, right? Like, I don't know, like, maybe I'm not super up to date on AI, just generally speaking, but, like, I generally feel that whenever I see AI in games or, like, news articles and stuff, it feels very obvious and very, like, questionable in terms of just its quality. Like, I don't know, the way AI speaks, from what I've seen, is, like, I don't know if I'd want players reading that, if that makes sense. Now, that said, maybe I'm just not up to date on the latest AI models for writing text, and maybe they're better than I think. And maybe the reason I say I can tell when it's an AI is that I can only tell when it's a bad AI, and maybe the good AIs you can't tell, right? But it's a very real thing of, like, a quality question, right? And then on top of that, it's also, like, stolen work question as well, right? Although text generator is a bit different than, like, other areas. Everyone in this chat is an AI, no one's real. I mean, y'all ever heard of dead internet theory? The theory that a lot of, like, internet traffic and discussion is just AIs talking to each other. It's just robots talking to robots. Mainly, like, one thing I'll say, like, setting aside all, like, the very real ethical problems of things like, you know, a lot of AI is stolen work and things like that, right? Another thing I think about AI generally that I've thought about, like, a lot as a game dev is just, like, there's so much of, like, auto-generated content is, like, bad, right? Like, the best games are the handcrafted games a lot of the time, right? Like, the games handcrafted by a person to be fun. Like, it's like, it doesn't mean, like, you can't do, like, you know, procedural generated things, right? There's games that have that, and, like, they can be fine, right? But, like, it's like procedurally generated levels, as an example, don't tend to, like, compare to, like, handcrafted levels, right? And now, like, some games, like, they don't need handcrafted levels because that's not what they're about, right? Like, you know, like, Path of Exile having, like, procedurally generated maps is, like, totally fine because, like, you're not trying to get, like, a really unique, bespoke experience by, like, running through an individual Path of Exile map, right? But, like, one of the things that, like, one of my issues was, say Starfield, when that game came out, is Starfield was like, oh, there's all these planets, a galaxy of stuff to explore. And then the vast majority of the planets weren't interesting because they were all procedurally generated. Whereas, like, the really cool stuff that I ran into in Starfield tended to be, like, the handcrafted content. The moment I stopped playing Starfield was I went to a planet in the game, and I explored this really cool tower. And it was a sweet tower. It had some enemies in it. And it was just fun. It was fun going up the tower, exploring it, getting items, things like that, defeating the enemies. And I was like, yeah, this was a good time. And then I went to a planet in a different galaxy, literally the next planet. And I landed on that planet, and I found a tower that was the exact same tower I had just explored, piece for piece. And the enemies inside it were different. And I was like, okay, my immersion is lost. I don't know if I can keep playing this. And like, I just, you know, and it was just like, it's this question of like, if you have 1,000 planets of content, technically, right? Like a galaxy to explore, but then each individual piece of the galaxy is like procedurally generated and potentially the same as another piece of the galaxy. Like, does that create a compelling explorative experience? There's definitely ways to do it because, again, like Path of Exile procedurally generates their maps, and like Path of Exile is super fun and it's great and it totally works, right? But I feel like a lot of like potentially like generated by not humans kind of content in game design can end up being just feeling kind of like empty and soulless. And that would be my concern with using, you know, again, aside from all the ethical concerns, which I think are very real, it's just like, I haven't seen, and again, maybe I'm just not aware enough, but I haven't seen examples of like AIs that create like compelling, soulful content in the grand scheme of like a video game or something like that.
What do we think about adding KLED Courage on Kill Back? Is there a chance it gets added back if KLED comes out weak? I think if KLED comes out, we would certainly not like hotfix it or anything. I think it's pretty unlikely that we would put it in as a buff in the first, like the following patch. I think what is most likely that if at any point there are extra art resources we could use and we think that KLED could use some work, if we had the ability to make something visual to showcase KLED is going to gain courage from someone dying, like the Triumph missile, but actually visible, and especially visible to other people besides KLED himself, that is where I think we could potentially get back into that territory. Because as a general thought, like, I like the mechanic. The problem with it is that it's completely invisible, and it's very difficult for people to understand why or how KLED is remounting in games. So it's really a problem of readability. It's not really a problem with like the mechanic in and of itself. So the problem is there aren't art resources to make that missile and to like make that, you know, kind of visual. And so in like, if and when that happens, I'd be happy to put that mechanic back in and trim the power elsewhere. But that's like, so I guess to answer the question, the answer is like no, unfortunately. I personally like that mechanic. Like the gameplay of it, I think is pretty good. The problem is not with the gameplay. The problem is with the readability.